All right, welcome. I'm in this Mercedes right now because I am heading into Birmingham to hand this car back. This has been my courtesy car whilst my Tesla was getting fixed. And I'm making this video for a couple of reasons. Number one, as a continuation to the video that I made last week, where I talked about car finance and the fact that as a nation, we spend a lot of money financing these things. We spend 20 billion a year on brand new vehicles, 22 billion a year on used vehicles. And personally, I wanted to challenge people to think about how we're allocating cash, because the reality is between 2009 and 2022, the amount we're spending on these cars has increased significantly. But we've also found that actually our wages have increased like by a minuscule amount compared to how much more we're spending on these vehicles. And so thinking about our life goals and the fact that money is a tool, life is for living, are we really going to work to drive nice cars and not actually have a life? It's mad. Anyway, in this video, I'm just gonna try and articulate why it is that I refuse to take out another car finance agreement, and why I definitely refuse to take 30, 40,000 pounds of my own cash to purchase a new car. I've just picked up my car. I'm at Individual Specialist Cars in Birmingham, and so I'm glad to have my car back, if I'm completely honest. I'm gonna give you a little walk around of the car. I'm gonna explain to you as well the repairs that they've carried out on my car, and I'll put a side-by-side picture to the repairs that have been done and the damage that was on the car that they were going to write it off for. Frankly, it was bonkers, but here's the car. Now, what they've had to change is they've had to put a brand new bumper on the front end, basically, okay? So what we had here was we had a little bit of a scrape on this side where another Tesla driver reversed into me whilst trying to pull into a supercharging station. Now, the damage was minimal, or so it looked as though it was minimal, but they were gonna write off the car for that, and for that alone. But this is what I'm working with. Now, I don't know about you, I think, turn this around, I think this is a really good looking car. I've had this for such a long time. I've put so many miles on this thing that the thought of having to take out new car finance, because someone had bumped into the front bumper and they were gonna write this off, to me was kind of unfathomable. So I'm glad that I got this back, and the guys at Individual Specialist Cars have done a great job on the bodywork here. Now, I'm gonna be heading home now, but I wanna walk you through the alternative options that I had if this car did get written off. And then you tell me whether you feel that I've made the right decision, and whether, actually, that's not even the question. You tell me whether the alternative would have been a better financial decision than what I've ended up doing in fighting for this car to be repaired and keeping hold of my cash. I'm not gonna lie, being back in this thing is, I love it. I've had this car, I got this with maybe about 10,000 miles on it 7 years ago. At the moment, right now, filming this, the miles on the odometer is 166,409. So that means I've put over 150,000 miles on this thing in the 7 years that I've actually owned it. And don't get me wrong, the Mercedes was great, build quality was great. It was just a bit of a pig to drive. I mean, when you think about the responsiveness that you get from an electric vehicle, it's immediate torque, it's immediate reaction time. If you want to put your foot down, you can go. In the Mercedes, it was a big car. So not only do you put your foot down and you hear the engine spoil up, but it takes 2-3 seconds before anything actually happens. And you don't get that with electric, it's instantaneous. It allows you to be a little bit more dynamic air quotes, as a driver. And I've come to really love that. I've come to get used to it, because I can get in and out of a jam very, very quickly, no issues whatsoever. I can put my foot down and be gone. And that really does give you confidence when you drive. Now, obviously with the Mercedes, yeah, I think the biggest thing is there were two things actually that I appreciated in the Mercedes going back into a normal car. The first was build quality. This right here is a 2014 Tesla Model S. So in comparison to some of the new ones that they've started to build, the build quality is not anywhere near as good. I mean, look, my panel gap right there, I can put my finger in that panel right there, right? But the car makes up for it in so many other ways. There's infotainment system. Look, you can play games on this, you can browse the internet, you can watch Netflix on this thing. The car does a lot of the thinking for you. There's so much in this thing that isn't in traditional cars, I would argue. And this is way ahead of its time. Yes, some manufacturers have caught up, but back in 2014, this was way ahead of its time, and I believe Tesla continued to do that. The second thing that I did come to appreciate in the Mercedes is, obviously there is no charge time, right? So you rock up to a petrol station, you fill it up, takes 2-3 minutes, you're on your way, right? Whereas with this right now, because again, it is an older Model S, I have to basically rock up to a supercharger, plug it in, and I've got to wait for my charge. And the reality is that with this particular car, the charging rate has become a lot slower. So now it takes a little bit longer for this car to charge, especially if I'm on a low charge, maybe at 10, and I need to get all the way back up to like 90 to 100. That takes over an hour sometimes. Now, I've come accustomed to that because I will typically just stick on Netflix and I'm good to go whilst I'm charging, right? No issue whatsoever. For some people though, I know you'll be watching this thinking, nah, you couldn't deal with that. But here's the other flip side. Yes, you've just filled up your car in 2 minutes, but the GLC that they gave me cost 100 quid to fill up. This car has free supercharging for its entire life. So in other words, I've had this car for 7 years and I've never once, not once, have I paid to charge the car. And when you put on top of that the other benefits, I go down to London quite a bit, so I do a lot of miles, right? Congestion charge, I don't pay it. Parking in the middle of London, in central London, used to be 80p, I think it's now £1.10, something like that, for 4 hours. It's almost a no-brainer if you're in a populated city like London. And the other thing that I love this car for is the fact that, if not for this car, I never would have invested in Tesla. I bought this car, fell in love with it, and I was like, oh, let's see what the company's all about. Started to look at what the company's all about. I was like, okay, I need to invest in this company, and I'm glad to say that, it's done pretty well for me over the years. But what I'm going to do next, though, is talk you through the options that I was going to explore if this car got written off. There were two main options that I was considering to explore had the car been written off. The first was to buy a brand new Tesla. The other was to upgrade, but buy a used car, but one with a bigger battery pack to the one that I have. So the current car that I have is a P85 Plus. So it's a performance 85 kilowatt car, and it's rear-wheel drive. They don't make the 85 kilowatt battery pack anymore. So what I was considering with doing was buying a used 100D. That's a 100 kilowatt battery pack with a dual drive motor, dual drive setup. So this is the one that I was looking at on Auto Trader, and this one is £47,500, which is a lot of money. Now I have that money there. I would buy it cash, but even if I were to put money into this and finance it, we would still be looking in the region of £400-500 a month. And the idea of that just didn't appeal to me, particularly because I don't have any monthly payments at all at the moment. And the idea of putting it on finance and also paying the interest and having it cost more than this over the finance term was also just not something I was willing to do. And £47,500 is a lot of money. The other option that I was thinking of was to basically buy a brand new Model Y. So I actually had one of these for a test drive. And the beauty about these is that, yes, it's brand new. Yes, it's got VAT. Yes, you're probably going to lose the value on it immediately the minute you actually drive it off. But the tech is so much more up to date. I mean, it's actually quite staggering, the improvement in the tech. It's leaps and leaps and bounds beyond what I'm driving currently. And so I was looking at something like this, but look at the starting prices, £62,000 for this. And even if I were, let's have a look at the details on finance for this, by the way. We can go here and let's go PCP. Actually, let's go personal. Could have put it through my business, but the maximum you can put into this car will be £18,000, just over. And I do quite a lot of miles. I do, 15,000 miles is the max you can select here, but I probably do in the region of about 20. You're still looking at £492 per month there on a personal contract hire. If you did it on a PCP, you're looking at 718. Even if you took a Tesla loan, £769 a month over a 5-year term. That's with £18,000 in. It is an absolute whopper. I mean, I could technically put it through my business, and yes, it may be a little bit more palatable. It would become a write-off. I can use it to reduce my corporation tax, but still, looking at £648 a month. And so for me, a lot of these options were just not palatable at all. And one of the things that I started to think about was, if I go back to the option where I buy this car right here, because this is very similar to what I'm already in. It's not smaller. The Model Y is smaller. This is the same size, an upgrade in battery pack, in speed and acceleration, in interior, in trim, and maybe some of the software that's in it as well. But, for £47,500, what really got me was that is a deposit for a buy-to-let or two. And a buy-to-let will generate income for me. And it's not £47,500 that I would have wasted or felt like I'd wasted putting it into a car to get me from A to B. And so I fought for the car, my car, currently, to be repaired. And I'm thankful that I have, because I will ride it till the wheels fall off. Now, I'd love to hear your views on this. What do you think? Would you have done something differently? Would you have viewed it differently? Would you have forked out £47,500 to upgrade? Would you have bought a brand new one?